Faces dropped on a new edition of Soccer Down Here. It's a Wednesday. It's June 10th. There's lots of stuff happening this morning, and we're going to get it started with a little bit of this.
Orlando,
I love you, Orlando, as well. And Paul Tenorio loves Orlando and the rest of us because he's dropping news this morning. Everybody's dropping news this morning, and MLS is dropping news this morning, and everybody's at it. So that gets a little bit of this. That gets a little bit of this. And this. All right, according to MLS, our 2020 season kicks off again with all 26 clubs in the hashtag MLS is Back tournament starting July 8 from ESPN Wide World of Sports at Walt Disney World. All right, let's get some details here on what this is going to look like. So, everybody's playing. Group stage, knockout rounds. Group stage counts towards the regular season. Winner goes to the CONCACAF Champions League in 2021. Pre-tournament draw to assign the groups. The regular season will continue after the tournament. I don't know why this has been confusing, but for some reason it has. Don Garber said this: the opportunity to have all 26 clubs in a controlled environment enables us to help protect the health of our players, coaches, and staff as we return to play. We also recognize that the death of George Floyd and others has focused our country on issues of racial injustice, inequality, and violence against black men and women. Together with our owners, players, and staff, the league and its clubs are deeply committed to creating meaningful and impactful programs to address these issues that have plagued our society for far too long. The protocols are established for this. We'll get into that in a second. That's that fun stuff that we've been digging into a lot over the last couple of months. We'll let you know what that looks like here in a sec. Schedule. July 8th, the group stage begins. July 25th through the 28th, round of 16. July 30th through August 1st, quarterfinals. August 5th and 6th, semifinals. August 11th, the final. All the matches will air on MLS partner networks. Broadcasts will feature experimental technologies, including interactive fan elements and unprecedented access to players and coaches to create a unique experience for viewers. All right, let's get into the protocols because this has been a number one thing that a lot of people have talked about with should MLS come back? Can you come back? Should you just open everything up? Let's get into the details here. So, didn't come out of nowhere. This has all been building on everything that's in place to return to contact training. It's that built on everything that was returning to individual training going back to May 6th. So, all the teams will travel via charter plane, must arrive no later than 7 days before their first match. So you have to be there a week before you play. Most teams will be there around July 1st. All right, before you go to Orlando, now remember, there is a process before you come back to full team training as well, and they're similar. Before going to Orlando, all essential members of a club delegation must undergo 2 PCR tests. That's your COVID-19 test. You have to do that 24 hours apart. That is to eliminate the likelihood of a false result. 2 false results in a 24-hour period. It's like 7,000 to 1. It's very, very rare. Players will undergo a baseline antibody test as well. Physical exam will have a temperature check. There'll be a screening questionnaire. All of that. The PCR tests are not the same test maybe everywhere. They do leave a little bit of flexibility there. They say typically it's via a nasal swab or a saliva test, probably depending market to market, what's more available, what works, et cetera, et cetera. MLS is partnering with BioReference Lab to provide and process PCR tests and antibody tests for all clubs prior to travel, as well as on-site in Orlando during the competition. Individuals who test positive will not travel, will be isolated, overseen by club medical staff. Contact tracing will be triggered to identify close contacts. Individuals who test negative but serology positive, so they have antibodies, may travel to Orlando if they are asymptomatic. It's a kind of odd element to it, but okay. Arrival in Orlando. Once you arrive, you're taking another test. Players may begin training and staff only upon the receipt of that negative result once they arrive in Orlando. So you're doing 2 tests before you go, over 24 or it's separate from 24 hours apart. And then you're going to be tested again when you get there. They are doing a lot of testing in Major League Soccer. Testing in Orlando. During an individual's first 2 weeks in Orlando, that person will be tested every other day. After those first 2 weeks, players, coaches, and PRO, Professional Referees Organization, staff will be tested regularly, including the day before each match day. So it will drop down from the every other day. Remember, no other league in the world is doing the every other day testing. Nobody. Germany's doing twice a week. That is what's typical. 2 tests a week is what the Premier League and the Championship are doing. I believe that's what La Liga is doing as well. Nobody's doing every other day. So that's a huge commitment on the part of MLS. In addition to that regular testing after the first 14 days, self-temperature screenings, standardized screening questionnaires, everybody traveling to the Wide World of Sports complex or providing services at the hotel and convention center where league and club personnel will be staying. The one question I would have would be, is there testing for the people providing services? That's a little bit different situation. I don't know what Disney's policies are. There are workplaces that are requiring testing to come into work. It's not completely out of the realm of possibility here. I don't know what Disney's situation is, and that's probably a question that does need to be asked here. A positive response to the daily questionnaire or a temperature check above 100.3 degrees must be reported, and the individual in question isolated immediately, and then they're tested. So, okay, that answers that question, at least according to what's written here. That's I think a question. I mean, if you're going to have staff on site who are not being tested, all the testing for your players is good. And look, the risk is low. You know, people who are cleaning, people who are serving food, people who are, delivering things to rooms, people who are at the desks, there's not a whole lot of contact. I mean, I think most of us have stayed in a hotel, and how long were you around anybody who worked at the hotel? Not very much. And to understand the likelihoods of where you talk about risk and transmission, you have to be around somebody for an extended period of time, not broken up over, like, you go to the desk, then you leave, then you come back to the desk, and you leave. It's sitting next to them. It's being in their space for a long period of time. So there's not a lot of risk there, but I wonder if that's going to come up as a question about should they be tested ahead of time, should they be tested weekly, et cetera, et cetera. We'll see how that one goes. Prevention. So in addition to all the testing and the screening, the task force has worked with experts to create guidelines, best practices to reduce risk, prevent spread. These include wearing face coverings, wearing face masks, social distancing, general hygiene, avoid touching your face, washing your hands frequently, avoid sharing food, bottles, towels, equipment, cleaning, sanitizing, disinfecting surfaces. The Walt Disney World Resort and the Swan and Dolphin Hotel, so they're going to be staying in a different place than we had talked about originally, not the Coronado Springs. I think that's where the NBA is going to be. The resort, the hotels will be providing enhanced cleaning of all venues and enforcing appropriate capacity management and other social distancing guidelines. Okay, in-match prevention. Players, coaches, officials asked to exercise care when spitting or cleaning their nose. So there's no ban on it. There's no automatic yellow card. You're basically being asked not to do it and not to do it around anybody. Players, coaches, and officials on the bench or technical area required to wear masks, practice social distancing to the extent possible. It's going to be a little different because it's not like the Bundesliga where you've got the stands and you can just send all the guys on the bench to sit up in the bleachers. You might not have all of that depending on the fields you're on at the Wild World of Sports complex. So you're going to have to come up with a way to social distance as much as possible. Why? Again, it is out of extreme caution. Players who are sitting next to each other for 45 minutes increase the risk of any transmission if there is anything to transmit between the two. If you're not sitting next to somebody for 45 minutes, it decreases the risk. Is it an extreme kind of measure? Yeah, I think so. If you're doing all this other testing, I don't think it's as necessary, but it's what is being recommended. It's what is meeting these guidelines to minimize risk, doing everything possible to do it. Players involved in a game, they're asked not to exchange jerseys, they're asked not to kiss the ball. Masks or face shield protections should be used during press conferences or flash interviews. Something to understand here, if there are other people around, the face shield protects you. So if I am talking to a bunch of people and I don't want them potentially spitting in my face, not intentionally, accidentally, a face shield protects me. It also protects you, but it protects me. A face mask protects you, and that's the whole point. It's to limit spread. So if you're doing press conferences or flash interviews, if there are people in your space, you might wear a face shield because you're protecting yourself as well as others. If there's not really people around too close, or the people around are part of the traveling parties, have been tested, all this, you might just opt to wear a mask. You might opt to take the mask off. These are different things that can happen, but it all depends on the situation. All right, protocol for a positive test, and this is once you're in Orlando. I know this is not the fun stuff, but this is the important stuff to dig through, and let's get it on the table first. If an individual develops symptoms, that person must first contact club medical staff via text, email, or phone. You have an on-site telehealth physician. They'll provide an evaluation. Next steps will be determined, including isolation, testing, hospitalization, if needed. That's symptoms, not a positive test. If an individual tests positive as part of routine testing, that person's relocated to an isolation area after an evaluation by the on-site telehealth physician. Isolation requires relocation to a room in a designated area of the hotel. That relocation would occur under a strict and detailed protocol to minimize the risk of transmission. Individual would remain in isolation, monitored daily, tested routinely. Test-based plan or symptom-based plan will then determine the timeline for the return to play or work if it's a staff member. Test-based plan, an individual can return to activity once the person is asymptomatic and tests negative twice in a span of 24 hours. That's another kind of best practice that we're starting to see emerge consistently. The symptom-based plan takes into account the days elapsed since the resolution of fever and the number of days since symptoms first appeared. So if you've got symptoms but you're not testing positive, they're still going to isolate you. They're still going to be very careful, but you can't do the protocol to return back based on testing because you didn't test positive initially. If you test positive, then when you're asymptomatic and when you test negative in a span of 24 hours, you're good to come back. That eliminates that mandatory 14-day quarantine that some organizations are still holding to. It's all about the testing in this scenario. Either case, whether you test positive or you have symptoms but you don't test positive, players who test positive will be required to undergo cardiac testing before receiving their final clearance from club medical staff to return to training. Contact tracing is also mandatory. Close contacts, individuals who spent at least 10 minutes within 6 feet of a person who has tested positive or is presumed positive. Those close contacts are tested. They can continue to train or work as long as they wear a face mask at all times when not competing, remain asymptomatic, and continue to test negative. All right, this is something that's come up a lot that people have wondered how you'd handle it in these situations. Hospital visits unrelated to COVID-19. Any player who suffers an injury is evaluated by the club's medical staff. If the player has to be hospitalized, MLS has identified hospitals and facilities close proximity to the team hotels and the training fields. after receiving that hospital treatment, this is unrelated to COVID-19, if it's an injury, if it's a broken bone, whatever, the player will not be required to isolate unless he becomes symptomatic or test positive. So it's not a bubble scenario. If you break your leg, if you break your arm, or just you break a bone, let's say you break a bone, you got to go to the hospital and get it set. You go to the hospital and get it set. They've identified hospitals that are clear to use for these situations. Once they come back, they don't have to go into a quarantine period. Understand that. They come back, and if they're good, they're good. If the player's identified as a close contact or someone who tested positive for COVID-19, then it's a different scenario. Then you're getting into quarantine periods. Then you're doing the testing. Then you're doing all of that. If the player can no longer play or train due to the injury, then the league and the club makes the decision on sending them home and getting them home if they can't participate. Okay. Players or staff who are high-risk individuals. Players who are considered to be in a high-risk category for severe illness related to COVID-19 will not be permitted to travel and participate in the tournament unless they're cleared by the club's chief medical officer. They also need clearance from their primary care provider. High-risk categories currently include persons with chronic lung disease, moderate to severe asthma, serious heart conditions, immunocompromised, diabetes, chronic kidney disease, undergoing dialysis, liver disease, severe obesity, people who live in a nursing home or long-term care facility. That's all high risk. Post-tournament return. After it's done, teams will revert to the existing club and health safety protocols that they're using right now for training when they return to their home market. That's pretty well thought out, and it addresses, I think, everything that had come up to this point. I'm sure there'll be more questions. You've got the return to play after a positive test. You've got what testing looks like there. It's every other day for the first 2 weeks once you arrive. Then it's regularly, which I would assume would be twice a week. You're being tested 24 hours before a game. All of your injury concerns unrelated to COVID-19, everything is there that I thought of. Is there anything you feel like it's missing, John?
No, the one thing that I was curious about was something that was a similar concern to Premier League players, was testing of those who are medical personnel and those who are going to be administering to players in these situations, and that was covered in part of the discussion.
Yeah, because they're part of the group. So your team delegation, I mean, roughly you're thinking players, technical staff, obviously, team medical staff. So, I mean, your team is bringing your people. Your comms people, your digital people, whatever the numbers that you're allowed to bring, all of those folks are going through this testing. So you are following up on that. Okay, let's talk about the TV side of it, the presentation side of it. So all of them are played in standalone windows, televised across MLS partner networks. None of the matches will overlap. No two matches at one time. Similar to a World Cup, the tournament will feature a continuous schedule of matches nearly every day from July 8 through August 11. Games kick off at 9 a.m., 8 p.m., and 10:30 p.m. We might have to think about our time slot, John. Okay. In addition to this setup, the telecasts will feature unique and experimental technologies, virtual commercial displays, new camera positions, advanced audio and fan integration elements, unprecedented access to players and coaches. On top of the new broadcast enhancements for the tournament, MLS is evaluating a number of technologies that will provide fans the opportunity to express their support and creativity, including interactive elements. Tournament draw is tomorrow at 3:30. It's going to be live on MLSsoccer.com, Facebook, Twitter, YouTube. Once that is done, then the schedule will be released. But it will start on Wednesday, July 8th. Okay. So that's what that looks like. Still a little vague, but a lot of things that they are looking towards here. Anything else in tournament details that we have not touched on? We've hit the dates here. Key dates, June 24th, teams can start arriving in Florida. July 8th is when it starts. You have to be there 7 days before your first game, so you can train in your home market up to that point. And I think everybody is good to do full training in their markets. I don't think the markets are preventing anybody from doing it. Right now, there's only 3 teams doing it: Atlanta, New England, Kansas City. Miami announced that they have been cleared to move to full team training this week. Don't know if that meant today or tomorrow or Friday. July 25th to the 28th, round of 16. July 30, August 1st, quarterfinals. August 5th and 6th, semifinals. August 11th, the final. Split into 6 groups. Eastern Conference will have 3 groups. 1 group with 6 teams, 2 with 4 teams each. Western Conference will have 3 groups, each consisting of 4 teams. So each conference has 3 groups. Everybody plays 3 group stage games. All those games count for the regular season. The top 2 teams from each group, along with the 4 best third-place finishers, will move on to the knockout stage. So you're going to go from everybody to 16 teams. Knockout matches that finish tied at the end of regulation, no extra time, you go to a shootout. Penalty kick shootout. We're not going old school. Draws tomorrow, 3:30. Nashville's moving over to the East. They will be part of the Eastern Conference for the rest of the season. As a host team, Orlando will be the top seed in the 6-team group. The 4 semifinalists from the playoffs last year, Atlanta, LAFC, Seattle, Toronto, also group seeds. Real Salt Lake is the other group seed because there's 6 groups. They had the next highest points total in the Western Conference from the 2019 season. 3 Western, 3 Eastern seeds. That's why Orlando gets an Eastern seed, because they're the host. General competition rules. They do allow the 5 substitutions per match. It's only under 3 different times in the match outside of halftime. You can name a match day roster of 23, not 18. You can go up to that. You will have VAR. That will be included. The CONCACAF Champions League spot does go to this team, and it replaces... So this is a question we had. We were all wrong. What the Champions League spot replaces is not the Open Cup winner, not the Supporter Shield winner, the other regular season conference leader that didn't win Supporter Shield. Because MLS Cup, Supporter Shield, Open Cup, and in the other conference leader that didn't win Supporter Shield, that's typically your 4. This tournament replaces that second regular season one. So that's where you go. And it's regardless, and that's another thing that's interesting. It's regardless if it's U.S. or Canada. So whoever gets it's going. That makes me think that the Canadian Championship ain't happening.
Yeah.
So there you go. Unless there's just a disposition here to say that, well, if Canada gets 2 spots, then they get 2 spots. And that's just what we're going to do. Prize money. What the players are excited about here. A $1.1 million prize pool. Not sure how that's going to divide up. I don't think it's winner take all, though that would be wild if it was.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
I don't think it'll be that. I would imagine that you probably get a little bit for the groups or for the knockout, getting to the knockouts. You probably get a little bit more for the quarters. You probably get a little bit more for the semis. Bigger check for the final. Do what the Copa Argentina does. Bring the giant cardboard check out for the team that wins these knockout games. Do it. Yes. Like, that's awesome. Do it. There's nothing wrong with that. Like, I think that's great. Like, have these guys that do the socially distanced celebration with the giant cardboard check, saying that they just won $100,000 or $200,000.
I thought you were going to say just go ahead and bring the money out in a big cup.
No, they don't do that. No,
suitcase.
That's John, you followed Argentine soccer enough at this point. You know that would get stolen, right?
Yeah, but I'm just you bring the suitcase, flash the money, 2 dudes in the sunglasses, and then bring the check out.
No. It's Orlando. It might get stolen anyway. We're not going to have that. We're going to have a giant cardboard check. You know, that's the way to do this. So, that's what we know. That's what MLS has announced. They have dropped all of this. The draw will be tomorrow. Excited to see who ends up with who. Questions from you guys out there listening to this now that this is official. Janusz Mihalik was right, first off. So you got to give Janusz props for dropping that little nugget like Sunday night at some point. I'm hearing Wednesday. I'm hearing we'll know more on Wednesday. We know more on Wednesday. It's very cool.
Yeah.
All right. What do we have on the Twitters? Because I'm sure people are reacting.
We do have Twitters. When you want to reference it, we also have quotes from Mike Jacobs, the GM of Nashville SC, about them being in the East for 2020 as well.
Okay, well, now let's hear from Mike Jacobs real quick, because I don't think it's that big of a deal.
Yeah. He says, moving to the Eastern Conference is great for Nashville SC and our fans, as the email decides to recycle. Soccer is so tribal, and the opportunity to play this 2020 season against regional rivals in proximity to Nashville is really important for our club on and off the pitch. Nashville SC was selected to switch conferences, continuing in the release, for both the tournament and the remainder of the 2020 season due to its proximity to the Eastern Conference teams, which maximizes efficiency and recovery time by minimizing team travel, which is critical given the compressed time frame. The team's farthest travel distance will now include a 924 air mile trip to take on Montreal compared to the 2,041 air miles required to get to Vancouver. So that's the
interesting thing there, you buried the lead. They might already know what the schedule looks like after this. Mm. Well, he said he's going to Montreal, so
yeah, that would be that air trip. So to Montreal,
that would mean that they have the schedule done for what's after this. That's what I'm saying. Like that's the lead here. I mean, the rest of it, yes, we know, and yes, it makes sense to do now. Like, it was different when you were playing a full season and travel wasn't as big of a deal and you wanted balance between the two conferences. Well, now let's make it smart and let's do this. All right, let's get ready for this thing. What do we have on the Twitter?
Orlando, I love you, Orlando.
All right, let's see. Joey Logan is part of the conversation, but so let me go all the way back to the beginning. Cuppers has a lineup question. We can get into that. And he also, Cuppers wants to know if we're going to do a live show or another stoppage time Thursday after the draw. Programming question from Alex.
I'm just about positive we'll do a stoppage time. We'll have a production meeting at 10 o'clock when Mike joins us. Pretty sure we'll do a stoppage time during that. If not, we'll do a SDH show. We might do both. Who knows? This is all going to get ridiculous. We've got a lot of stuff to sort out now. That 9 o'clock game, like, look, what we might do is SDH might move to 11 for the group stage to be a post-game show, essentially, and talk about that game and anything else going on in the league. We'll figure that out. I don't think John can handle a 7 to 9 show, is what I'm saying.
You don't want that.
No, 9 o'clock's the struggle for John sometimes to be fully with us.
Yeah,
7 o'clock would be disturbing.
Ooh.
I think we might do an 11. Maybe I'll hop on and do like a half-hour pregame or something. We'll see what happens. There's a chance Atlanta's in this. Well, hold on. There's a chance Atlanta's in a 9 o'clock game. We don't know. I would assume that your Atlantas, your LAs, your Seattles, your Toronto. Toronto doesn't draw as much in the U.S., but they might do it for TSN purposes. Your bigger teams that draw more on TV, I would assume, would be in the primetime spots. I would assume that teams that don't draw as well on TV will be in that 9 o'clock spot. But you can't make all the 9 o'clock games duds or more of a dud. You've got to have something in there at some point because you've got to get Stephen A. Smith talking about it like a maniac. So we'll see how this goes.
With the Red Bulls in that game?
I want this to happen so bad. I really want it. And we were talking about this on our thread. I watched a little bit of the KBO this morning, and I've picked up a few things here and there, usually like at the end of a game, because I'll get up and the game will be going on. I'll turn on SportsCenter as I'm preparing for the show. But the presentation is going to have to be right here. And I think a lot of people have talked about presentation in the sense of, what the look is. If you don't have a big stadium, is it going to look right? Is it going to look like a youth tournament? The presentation's also the intensity of the broadcast team, the commentators. And look, I've done games in studio. I've done games, not on location. It's different. You've got to really work to have that intensity and have that emotion. But if it's not there, it's glaring. And it affects the listening and viewing experience.
Yep.
And I'm not excited about the KBO after watching that game this morning because of the way it was presented. I was like, this is a coffee NPR show, not a baseball game. Mm-hmm. So that's going to be a key here for everybody involved. And it's something Mike and I have talked about. Like, you've got to treat this with the importance that it deserves, and that will come across to the viewer, to the listener. So that's the key. I think that's more important than if there's palm trees in the background instead of an empty stadium. Like, it's gotta feel right, and the commentators do a lot to create that feel. And I might have to drink some extra Red Bulls before we do the broadcast. I don't know. Maybe it happens. We'll see. But we'll be calling these from Atlanta. For radio, we will be calling them from Atlanta. So once we get the schedule, we will let you know, and we'll be ramping it back up on 92.9 The Game, that's for sure. All right, what are people asking?
Tafka, I'll say it again.
Oh, Joey Logan had a question too, didn't he?
Well, Joey Logan was a part of the conversation, right. So we're going to go all the way to the beginning.
Okay.
When all this stuff broke about Orlando.
Okay.
Tafka, I'll say it again. Fully understand players wanting to be safe and being away from home for weeks at a time is a challenge, but players are going to be safer in Orlando than they would at their home, in my opinion, due to spouse, kids, grocery stores, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah, I mean, that's what we've been saying this whole time. If you have the testing to back it up, you're going to be tested more than the average person. You're going to have access to that. You're going to have everything kind of taken care of for you. It's not typical. It's not what you signed up for, to be away from home for 6 weeks is what looks like that could be the longer end of it, I guess. If you're a team that goes down there as soon as you possibly could and you go all the way to the final, you're a little bit more 7 weeks. But that's where we're at, and it's just the reality. I mean, we can look at it, we can complain, we can say that, well, this isn't what the season was supposed to be, and et cetera, et cetera. I think there's more to gain by putting up with it, playing, as long as all those protocols are done properly. And man, that's pretty thorough. Like, I think they've addressed the questions that have been brought up, and maybe that was part of the delay, was making sure that they were able to address all the players' questions, all the staff questions, all the coaching staff questions.
And then Tafka would have preferred a league-wide draw. We get so little, quote-unquote, important cross-conference play.
Well, you're not doing that because the rest of the season, reportedly, will just be conference play. So you're not going to have a cross-conference play here. So I think that's just what we're looking at, is the season is going to be regionalized. And, again, that's just where we're at. That's what you have to do to make all this work. The recovery time part that was mentioned by Nashville, 100% true. When you're playing in a condensed schedule, that Vancouver to Atlanta trip is brutal. Went through that one. It's not easy. The Vancouver to Atlanta and a couple days later to New Jersey is kind of brutal. If you're going to play a condensed schedule, which I think, again, that release hints at pretty heavily, you've got to do everything possible for that. Cost is another thing. It's cheaper to fly a shorter distance. I mean, there's just no way around that. So that's where you're at.
Sidebar really quickly, Bob Williams, Sport Business, and a bunch of other places. Here, how we were talking about Canada teams possibly, winning the tournament and how that could play out. Mm-hmm. Williams says Canada Soccer will continue discussions internally to determine the criteria of how they would recommend to qualify a Canadian club to the 2021 CONCACAF Champions League in the event the same team wins MLS's back tournament and the Canadian Championship. Bob is assuming that a Canadian Championship will happen.
Well, you're putting words in Bob's mouth. They haven't canceled a Canadian Championship yet, just like they haven't canceled the U.S. Open Cup yet. So those are still on the table for whatever it looks like, and until it's canceled, then it is what it is. You continue to present every event as it's out there in front of you. Yeah, it's suspended right now.
Yeah. Nathan Pugh, I'm glad for the organization and information on Orlando. He's getting very excited. So he's jacked up about what we've been talking about this morning.
Yeah. I mean, I think we'll all be singing this.
Orlando, I love you, Orlando.
Andrew Rannells is awesome. RJ's Modern Life So Nashville will have been / will be in both conferences this year, the Western Conference next year and the Eastern Conference in 2022.
Don't start trying to find nitpicking things. We don't know what 2021 even looks like yet. Let's just enjoy what this is for what it is. Because next year we know you've got Austin coming in and Charlotte coming in. I don't know. I don't know what you do. I don't know if you go ahead and split them up like you obviously would with Austin in the West, Charlotte in the East. I don't know if you go ahead and throw Chicago out West next year instead of Nashville. I don't know if you just go unbalanced. The logic behind it at the beginning was you wanted a balanced conference slate. And I'm assuming they figured that Chicago wouldn't ever go to the West, so they didn't want to bump them over short term and bump them back. Maybe they felt like Chicago needed all the help they could get with moving into Soldier Field. I don't know. But now you still got to figure that out. Do you want to go unbalanced? Does it matter to you? Do you want to keep it like it is now? My guess is because of the losses you're going to face this year, you're going to want to keep costs down next year as best you can. I don't know what your scheduling format would then look like if you have an unbalanced conference structure for 21. That would be the harder part to do with it. Otherwise, somebody's got to go out west.
Bartimus Prime says, I think it would have been better to have more group matches than knockout matches to remit the regular season match debt.
That was probably part of the trade-off, I'm assuming. Most people, it seemed like, when the initial idea came up and it was 5 group matches, people didn't seem to like it. And this was the trade-off. The flip side is the knockout games give you some intensity that might be lacking a little bit in these group games, because that's just how any competition goes. You know, you get into the knockout round and hey, this could be the season for a Vancouver, for a Chicago, for a team that wasn't looked at as a favorite in MLS this year. You make your season if you go down there and have a good month. And you go to CONCACAF next year and you win some money. I mean, that adds a level of excitement to it. I've always said one of the things I love about MLS is the playoffs, because playoff soccer in MLS is a special thing. Watch every match that I can. The intensity's off the charts. It's different. It's when people start comparing, like, you know, the Premier League, the Liga, you know, La Liga. Big games, sure. Absolutely. But you get a bunch of stinkers. Playoff games, they're all at a different level of intensity. It's just special. So now you're creating basically another playoff system in your season to do this. And I would not be surprised if this goes well, if you think of a way to model this down the road as a League Cup idea. Creates another property for you. It creates a way to do something. Maybe this is how you modify Leagues Cup, for example. I don't know. But this has created an opportunity. I want to see if they add a title sponsor to it, because I would be selling it like crazy to try to put a title sponsor on this thing.
No doubt.
And go from there. But I think that was the trade-off. They didn't want to do 5 group games and then 16 teams playing. I think they probably were pretty, set on having 16 teams in a knockout competition. So you do 3. If you don't make it to the knockouts, you can leave early. If you get knocked out in the round of 16, you can leave in 4 games instead of playing 5, plus potentially more. The length of the tournament seemed to be one of the main things people pushed back on. So I'm assuming this was because the players wanted less time in Orlando.
Yeah. Joey and Tofka are going back and forth over the notion of a possibility of a group of death coming out of these groups.
Yeah. I mean, it sounds like outside of the seeds, it's just, there you go, randomly. But so let's go back to it. It's group of 6, and then everybody else is group of 4. Top 2 from everybody goes, and then some third-place teams go. So 2 of 4, yeah, I mean, you could look at a group of death scenario. You could get that sort of situation. Questions are going to come up about the rest of the regular season, and we don't know yet. I think they've said that's going to be in conference, but I don't know what the format's going to look like. There's just no way to know yet. But for this, could you get a group of death? Yeah, you will. You will. It happens in any draw. So if you get Atlanta, if you get NYC, you get Toronto. No, not Toronto. You get Atlanta, NYC, New England, because I think they'll be good this year, and Columbus. Don't want any part of that.
Yeah. Michael Hedge flashing a photograph from the match in Nashville. He says, Nashville in the East for 21 and beyond? Yes, please.
Beyond, yeah. Maybe not for 21. 21, if you're going to have a balanced conference alignment, somebody's got to go to the West. And Nashville did the first time, so I'd assume they might do it again. Unless you're going to go with an unbalanced conference alignment. Then what does your format and your schedule look like? For 22, where you have St. Louis and Sacramento coming in, well, then that solves that problem. But the problem was you had two Eastern teams in Miami and Nashville come in together. And this is why I argued over and over and over again when we talked expansion, you weren't trying to balance the map when you were picking teams. You were picking teams who were the best teams and the right teams to come in. And if this means Nashville has to flip-flop for a year or two, then that's just where you're at. It's the best for the league as a whole.
Nathan Pugh, who greeted me this morning with his standard greeting. Orlando playing all their matches at 9 a.m. is a dream of mine. Evil laugh and then a poop emoji.
That is kind of funny. I can't lie.
Well, and then resting.
Could you imagine Orlando and Vancouver at 9 a.m.?
But, I mean, that's just cruel and unusual punishment to ESPN. So, or Fox or whoever gets that game.
TSN,
I'm assuming
yeah.
the 9 o'clock games are going to... Well, TSN's going to get it because they get every Vancouver game. They're used to misery. I'm talking about your national audience that's going to be checking this out for the first time. You don't want to throw a bunch of garbage in there.
No.
You got to throw some good games in that slot. I think you're going to see more good games in that slot than you're thinking.
Breakfast with MLS.
Yeah.
I mean, you got to hit seriously with that AM game. If you want to hit it hard, you want to bring in audience. You're going to have your core. You're going to have your MLS fan. But if you want to bring in the casual fan, you hit that 9 a.m. matchup as hard as possible, and you get that 8 p.m. matchup as hard as possible with a lot of the marquee matchups in all these groups.
Well, you got 3 time slots. You're not going to dismiss the 10:30 game because if you're in Los Angeles, that's a big deal.
Mm-hmm.
So you have to hit every time slot as hard as possible.
Yes.
Thank you for that report from the Ad Wizards. I appreciate that.
Orlando, Vancouver, 9 a.m. or 10:30.
No, you can't. No. Well, you could throw it at 10:30 because it'd be in prime time in Vancouver.
There you
It'd be 10:30 for Orlando, but does Orlando watch Orlando? I don't know.
That'd be a nope. Yep.
Well, that's just mean. Don't be mean to our friends.
Orlando, I love you, Orlando.
We love you, Orlando. We do.
True story. Went to go see Book of Mormon in New York and had 8th row aisle seats. Got through TKTS and actually got in to see Book of Mormon. Nice. During Spooky Mormon Hell Dream, there's a particular line in the song.
During what, excuse me?
The title of the song is Spooky Mormon Hell Dream. And it's amazing. There's one line in the song, and I can't say which one.
No, yeah, be careful, John.
Because of the impact it could make on the audience, and especially people driving behind the wheel if they're listening to us that way. Particular line in the song, once that line was sung by the Andrew Rannells character, someone slid out of his chair literally and fell into the aisle. It hit him that hard.
Well, that's not good.
No, it was funny. It was that funny. And it is a moment in time that the boss will always recall, especially when she's watching that particular show. She'll sit there and go, when that song comes up and that line comes up, she loses it because she remembers what happened when we went to go see it in New York. So that's what Book of Mormon does to you. Andrew Rannells was amazing. And Tafka, I like this. I like this. Tafka says make the 1.1 million winner take all. Do it.
Oh, I'm in. I'm in. Make it winner takes all. That would be amazing because you talk about the intensity that we were talking about before. You got guys playing to split between the playing staff. If you're going to say 30 players, split at 1.1 million. Put as much as possible to the winner. Like, don't try to divide it up where everybody gets a share. Although that's probably what it'll be.
1 million.
Make it as much as possible. Well, that's increase. That's throwing $400,000 more dollars in. Are you going to do that?
Then move the decimal point. $1,050,000. There.
This is why we can't do a 7 o'clock show, folks. Math.
Yeah. Well, no, I can't do math.
And boom goes the dynamite.
Thank you. RJ, with a question off of what the remainder of the season would look like.
We don't know.
Well, he says, do we know how many games would be after the tournament? Because we've already played 2 Eastern opponents of 14.
We don't know. We have no idea.
So, okay.
There's no way to know because they haven't announced it. So we don't know. All we know at this point is what Jacob Myers at the Columbus Dispatch reported when this all broke out. 18 games was what he was hearing. That would follow things I've heard. 9 at home, 9 away, but nothing about how that format looks. So I don't think you're going to be sending teams on cross-country trips. I think you're going to be playing in conference. I think you're going to be getting games where they fit. I think the idea of trying to find a balance, forget it. If you were trying to do that, then you would not be doing a draw for the groups. You would be placing teams into groups to set up certain matchups in Orlando so you're not having teams travel later. This is going to be randomized. It's where we're at. You're doing a draw for this, so the games afterwards, you're going to play as many games as you can while limiting cost in travel as much as possible. I think that's what those are going to be your guidelines.
And Mr. Fantastic, we don't know this during the regular season. Will Atlanta be playing at Fifth Third due to financial reasons of not having fans? Don't know.
I don't know why financial reasons would affect it that much. It's way too early to speculate on that because by the time we get to August, you might have fans in the stands. NASCAR is bringing fans back very, very slowly, but they're starting that this weekend. This weekend is really not like your average spectators coming in. It's a 1,000 people coming in, and they're part of. Is it part of the military who's coming into this?
Yeah.
Like it's a certain subset that is being selected to attend. Yeah. So that's
military
a different conversation.
Yeah.
Talladega next weekend is the one where you're having 5,000 people and some RVs and stuff. That's where it's like, oh boy, okay. Because if you've seen Talladega, you know how crazy that can get. It's only 5,000 people. Talladega is usually 200,000, something like that. Yeah. So 5,000, still 5,000. But that's now. Like, that's where NASCAR is. College football, NFL have never said anything about not having fans.
Yep.
By the time you get to August in these games, that might not be the scenario for MLS. You might have fans. You might have fans in some places. So it's way too early to speculate. The thing that makes me say that I don't think they would play games at Fifth Third due to cost reasons is you still got to rent it.
Yeah.
You at least have more control over the venue with Mercedes-Benz than somebody else's venue that you have to rent. And they're going to have football because Kennesaw State has a schedule. They're going to play, so you're going to have to deal with that as well. So, no, I don't expect that to be the case.
Also on the board, and this is a point that was made by both Jared and RJ. Hope the league or someone does a bracket challenge because RJ lives for stuff like this.
Yeah, I mean, you'll do what you do for a World Cup. So you'll pick the teams that make it to the knockout. It's going to be hard with third place teams making it. I think where the bracket challenge will be fun is once you get to the bracket. Like World Cup bracket challenges are a little easier because you're picking who wins the group, you're picking who's second in the group, then you're slotting them into the bracket, then you're picking it out. But the real fun for me is when the actual bracket starts. Because then it's rigid, you know what it is. It's not a situation where, well, I picked this team to finish second in the group, but they won the group, so they're in a different section in the bracket, so my bracket's not correct, blah, blah, blah. I think where we'll look at it, and maybe we'll try to come up with some kind of corollary to our fantasy league is...
Copa Especial.
No, that's not the fantasy league, John. Again, guys, it's not 7 o'clock. Drink the Mountain Lightning earlier today.
Ew!
Something.
Headache.
The Copa Especial is part of the Bailey Daily Cup, which is our prediction special. I'm talking about the fans, John. I'm talking about like the fantasy league that Jason Wright and the Jason Wright Agency runs. Maybe
Jason Wright, are you listening?
I don't know. He might be. Don't yell at him. We
Don't
might
yell
be
at him.
able to figure out a way to do a bracket challenge via SDH as part of all of that spectacular, and we will try to do that. But we will do it when the actual bracket starts, because that's the fun part.
Tafka says, as we approach a 30-club league with 29 opponents, I'd trade 4 or 5 league matches for a season-long tourney like this as part of my season ticket system.
It'd be interesting. This could be... I think with Leagues Cup and I think with the partnerships with Liga MX, that's probably more likely, but they're going to be paying attention to this. And if the ratings are really good and get a lot of people talking, you're going to see a way to replicate this going forward. You're definitely going to do that. So keep an eye on it. It's every crazy thing that can happen creates an opportunity. And this is an opportunity for MLS, and we'll see what they do with it. One thing that I've seen a lot of people mention, the name of the tournament, could it have been a little bit better?
The MLS's back tournament?
Yeah, I think we could have done better there. Maybe we will see a title sponsor added to it. Maybe that's an announcement that'll happen. Maybe the trophy will be named for somebody and something. But yeah, I feel like we could have done a little bit better.
Okay, Tafka has some questions after the announcement from Bobby Dodd yesterday, and he has a tactical question.
Okay, hold all that for a second. That is not related to what we're talking about. We will come back.
We're caught up on what we're talking about.
Okay, in Twitch, Turner Kirby wanted to note that the hotels that were mentioned in the protocols are not Disney hotels. They're not owned by Disney. They're on the property. So keep that in mind. Coronado Springs was owned by Disney, if I'm not mistaken. Tesco is calling for Mickey Mouse to deliver that giant check. I like that. You can bring out different characters. I vote for Goofy at least at some point here. We can create
if Vancouver wins it, bring out Goofy to do it.
Why you gotta hate on Vancouver, man? We might have listeners in Vancouver.
Bring it.
You're killing Vancouver today. Jeez.
They're just not very good until further notice.
Jeez. Yes, Joey, Austin is coming in 21. I might have misspoke. Austin and Charlotte are coming in 21. So you've got an East and a West. You still got to have something balanced because you moved Nashville to the West right now to balance it. Now you're moving them back East because of cost concerns and travel concerns. So for next season, you're just adding one East and one West. So it doesn't solve the problem yet. The problem solved in 22 when it's St. Louis and Sacramento that come in, both out west. Then Nashville in the east, and we're all good. We're all copacetic.
Yeah.
The realistic goals question. I think Joey had it, and you might have lost it.
Okay. You've got it. Go for it.
No. You had a question from Joey that you pushed to the side, and you haven't asked it yet. And Joey is yelling at me in Twitch. Well, you're not really yelling, Joey. I'm just being dramatic for effect.
I was going to say, I thought it was in all caps or something that he might be saying it.
No, but I was being dramatic.
Okay, well, I'm scanning and I've missed it. So, Joey, if you can resend it.
Ay, Dios mío. Hold on, Joey. I can look this up. I got you, Joey. I got you. I'll figure this out because I know how Twitter works. Okay, realistic goals question. I am scrolling. Joey, how far back did you go, man?
Resend it.
Yes, go ahead and resend it because I'm looking and I'm not seeing it. My bad. I apologize. Realistic goals for Atlanta United this season. Thank you. Man, it's really hard to call because we don't know what the group is for this. If it's a different conversation if you're in a group with NYC, Columbus and New England, as opposed to a group with Nashville, Chicago, and who else do I not think highly of in the East? I can't get Orlando in there, unfortunately. If you get an easy group, there's going to be a different expectation for this. Sure, Cincinnati with Jaap Stam in charge now. Yeah, if you get an easier group, then the expectation is going to be a little bit higher in this. And that's just going to be part of the season now. This is absolutely going to be part of the season, and it'll be part of the measuring stick. I'm looking at trying to have a better understanding of how they play without Josef Martinez by the end of the Orlando trip. Is there going to be an answer to that? Is it going to be opponent to opponent? Is it going to be Adam John? Is it going to be J.J. Williams? Is it going to be Pity Martinez? Is it going to be maybe Ezequiel Barco as a false nine? Is it going to be some of all of that? That's one thing I'm looking for, and it's hard to set the goals for the season without knowing that yet. The Josef Martinez injuries changed everything, and with the break, it still changes it. The fact that he's doing some more aggressive exercises does make you feel pretty good, which again changes those goals. So the short answer is I don't know, and I think we'll have a better sense of that after Orlando, but I don't really know yet. And I don't know, when you talk about goals, you do have to compare it to the rest of the group or the rest of the league. I don't know what to expect from everybody else either. New England's going to be missing Luis Caicedo for the rest of the year. I think that's a big loss. That's flown under the radar a little bit. Arena talked about it on local radio on Monday. Kansas City out west, they're going to be missing Felipe Gutierrez. So those are two teams that I had as teams that could make a deep run in the postseason that are going to be missing key players. We really still don't know what Miami looks like. We don't know what the transfer window is going to be yet because that could move around. Nobody really took advantage of the mid-March to early May remainder of the last transfer window because everybody was dealing with COVID-19. Does that change? Do you create a trade window like we've seen France do, for example, where you can have domestic transfers for a certain period of time before you go into the transfer window? It's a ton of questions. And I hope to have a better answer for you by the end of the Orlando event. But right now, I honestly don't know what the realistic goals are. I don't think it's really possible to know that yet.
The LA Galaxy have released a hashtag MLS is back ad with Sebastian Lletget as Marty McFly in the DeLorean.
Okay.
So that has come out in the last hour.
That gets a thumbs up.
Let's see. Nathan Pugh is looking forward to some weird, with a lot of E's, 7 a.m. shows, please.
Yeah. Yeah. Joey also asked, who do you see breaking into the first team with the expanded roster? Now, we don't know the roster is expanded. First off, nothing's been said about an expanded roster. The game day rosters are expanded to 23. The 30-man MLS roster, if it's been announced, it wasn't part of MLS's official announcement. If there's something else to it, then I don't know. Who could break in? Well, a lot of the things we talked about before with the questions about what the goals are. Adam John's going to have a huge opportunity in front of him. I think J.J. Williams is going to have a huge opportunity in front of him. I think Lawrence Weick has put himself into a conversation to have an opportunity. We're going to see more of that. Mateo Sosetu is going to have more of an opportunity with Josef Martinez's injury because you're going to need more offense. Manuel Castro is going to have an opportunity. This stoppage is going to help those two guys. It's going to help J.J. Williams. It's going to help Adam John because you're going to get now from the beginning of this week to the time you play in Orlando, you're getting a month of full training in a preseason environment, essentially, to prepare for life without Josef Martinez. You weren't going to get that before. You were going to have to figure it out on the fly. I would kind of zeroed in on the week off you had, I think, at the beginning of April in the original schedule, that maybe you'd get a little more of a sense of what this team would look like. After that, you're going to get a month. This is huge for Frank DeBoer. So all those guys have a big opportunity to step up. I think Mo Adams has a big opportunity to step up as well. He's a player that I really like how he can fit into the system. I think Frank likes a very defensive central midfielder, a very defensive 6 in that group, and Mo's going to have an opportunity to earn some of that time. So I think everybody has an opportunity in front of them, and this next month is going to be huge for those types of guys on the roster who want to get time in this. Bernd Dursberger with a great point on Twitch. In Germany, because of that 5-sub rule, you got a lot of young players who are getting their debut. You're seeing a lot of guys used in some different ways. He asked if you expect the same for Atlanta United, and I do. I think you're going to see guys get a 30-minute run out. You're going to see maybe a George Campbell get 60 minutes in a game here to start, and then somebody will come in to finish it out for 30 for him. You might be able to split minutes with a guy like Jeff Larentowicz and Mo Adams for that to keep everybody fresh. I think you'll see it. I think you'll see a lot of the roster used. And those early games you had where you had injuries, that helps with that because you've had a lot of guys who played already. They played 16 guys in the first 2 MLS regular season matches. That's as much as anybody in the league. So that's going to be a big help as well. We're going to get more questions. You got questions for Mike Conti. Go ahead and fire them off. John, you need to tell us about our good friend Steve Apolinsky over in Decatur, GA.
I can certainly do that. Apolinsky & Associates, LLC. You can reach out to him a couple of different ways. You can go to aa-legal.com on the website. Live chat available 24/7, 365 or 366, depending on just how many days in the year there actually are. You can also give him a buzz at 404-377-9191 or shoot Steve an email, steve@aa-legal.com. Over 30 years of experience, over $40 million in judgments, wrongful death, serious injury in Georgia and Alabama, recognized as legal elite by Georgia Trend Magazine for being one of the top 100 firms in this here state of Georgia. Once again, a couple different ways to catch up with Steve, who is everything soccer down here in SDH Networks. 404-377-9191 to get your free consultation, steve@aa-legal.com, or just go to the website and go to that live chat window. Just don't do it at 3 a.m. because Jason doesn't want to know if it's like Jake from State Farm and they're wearing khakis at aa-legal.com.
Mike, we've got to welcome you in with this because it's the Sunday of the day.
Orlando, I love you, Orlando.
You know, didn't they used to play that on that monorail that would take you from your gate to the baggage claim? As you made your way, so you made your way to either Boardwalk and baseball or the Kennedy Sea World or wherever the hell you were going in Central Florida. I vividly remember that because we went to Disney World every year as kids, and that little jingle is ingrained in my head. I think what was the tagline? Orlando, you never outgrow it. Like I remember, Orlando, you never outgrow it.
Wow.
Vividly remember that. So yeah, I mean, here we go. We've known all of this. We just haven't been able to assign dates, and we have, I think, a few more details about how teams are going to be grouped. But now we can put a date on the calendar and press forward. To me, the biggest news of all, guys, is the confirmation that people have been lightly treading around, but the confirmation that once this tournament is over on August 11th, the league is going to play out the rest of the season in home markets, and they're going to have a playoff and a cup final. That's enormous news. That's huge news. I think, again, the league has tried to tread very, very lightly around that because, it's a sensitive issue. But we're going to have matches in home markets come mid to late August, and that is outstanding news. And the way things are going, hopefully you might be able to get some fans into some of those, and what was looking like a very dire situation in March could actually turn out to be something as close to normal as possible by the end of the calendar year, which is really exciting.
Yeah, this is kind of wild. We went through all the protocols and regulations. I'm sure we'll rehash them on stoppage time later today. Is there anything that jumped out to you about the announcement and the format or anything about what MLS is doing to get soccer back?
I was just really curious as to how they were going to group everyone, because you do have that number. It's an even number, but it's a strange number of 26. And, in the Western Conference, it's pretty clean and tidy. You have 3 groups of 4. I am assuming that the top 3 in each group, and then, the top 2 in each group, and then the next 2 third-place finishers would go in the West, if I'm understanding that correctly.
The way they said it, yeah, in both conferences. It's a round of 16, so you're getting 8 in each conference. Did they break it up by conference? I actually think they got away from conference.
No, it is
in the round
of
16. I think they did, because they said the best 4 third place finishers.
Oh, did they? Let me. I'm looking at the release right here.
Make sure that I think it's not conference specific at that point.
Okay. All right. Well, that might be good. That might be the way they have to do it, because you look at that Eastern Conference group of 6.
Yep.
Right.
You have 2 groups of 4 and then a group of 6. Well, obviously, if you're in that group of 6, you're not going to play everyone in your group.
Right.
So if that's the Atlanta group,
no, it won't be. Won't be. Atlanta's seeded. Orlando is the seed in the 6th group. They've identified that.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh, I did not know that.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Well, but then let's take that as an example. So if Orlando is in that group and they don't have to, let's say their group is drawn as Orlando, Philly, New England, New York Red Bulls, New York City, and give me another really solid Eastern Conference team.
That's rough as
Miami.
DC.
Miami. Okay. So if that's their group, but they don't have to play Philadelphia and New York City, and you have New England in that group, and they get to play Orlando and Miami, but they don't have to. You see what I mean? There is a competitive imbalance concern in that group of 6.
Yeah,
but there's no clean. What else can you do? There's no clean, tidy way. You could eject 2 teams from Major League Soccer for this year. I would not recommend that.
John would be voting for Vancouver. He's been trashing Vancouver for 68 minutes this morning.
So you know what's so weird, guys, and I don't really have a lot of dreams when I sleep, because I don't sleep very soundly. I had a very vivid dream last night.
About Vancouver?
Well, kind of, because I thought this announcement was going to come today, I guess, and this was my subconscious speaking. But I had a dream that we got the format, and in order to fill out the tournament, they promoted Indy 11, and I don't know how Union Berlin got into the tournament, but Union Berlin was in there.
Did you eat some bratwurst yesterday or something?
No,
what was in the egg?
I have no. Well, you know what it might have been. You know what it might because I was watching that German Cup game, which was played in a very funky pastoral setting, which I actually really enjoyed. And maybe it reminded me a little bit of Union Berlin's ground, which is kind of like the Rose Bowl, where it's played in the middle of a forest and you see the trees over the top. I don't know, but I had a dream where like Atlanta United was grouped with an MLS team, Indy 11, and Union Berlin, because the league was trying to invite teams into the tournament to get an even number of groups. Clearly, this did not occur, but it shows you where my head is.
That's
it'd be really fun. But, CONCACAF Champions League berth to the winner, it does not replace the U.S. Open Cup or Voyagers Cup, which maybe that's a hint that they're going to try to get something going there. I don't know.
I think more than anything, they don't really have any say over it. They picked the least important of the automatic berths that MLS controls, the non-supporter shield best regular season in the other conference leader. And they also, the interesting thing that I think is from it, they opened up that possibility for a Canadian team to win that spot and go, and if the Voyagers Cup happens, if the Canadian Championship happens, you could have,
two
Canadian teams. And
I'm all
that's just
for
where it's
that.
at. I'm good.
I'm all for that. Yeah.
It's the best way to do it.
Totally fine. Yeah. Plus, you're going to have a cash prize. There's a lot of incentives here. I mean, your group games count toward the regular season. You've got the Champions League berth. All the things that we speculated upon that would incentivize this tournament and make it better, they are doing. What I now hope is that tomorrow at 3:30, it is a televised draw that they put on YouTube or something.
They are.
I don't want to see any Transformers or bobbleheads in the background.
I want the GoBots to make sure the thing's going to be done right. Every time the GoBots don't show up, it gets out of hand.
I don't want any of that. I don't want to see an envelope. I want to see a true lottery draw with ping pong balls.
No frozen envelopes.
I'm good with that.
No, yeah. I mean, I want it fully transparent, but
can Goofy come out and pull one of the ping pong balls since it's
sure? Why not? Or get
come out here and go pick up an
get the
envelope.
7 dwarves to wear like different kits or something like
Like
that. Like what? We have 6 groups, so assign a dwarf to each group, and then they can pick.
The 7th one pulls the envelopes out.
Yeah,
Which
or no, the
dwarf
7th,
do you want to wear the Atlanta United kit?
Or the 7th one could just be Sleepy, and he could be off in the corner sleeping. I don't know. Like, make it as fun as possible, but make it transparent. Make it an event, which it sounds like they're going to do.
Okay, so then how about this? For the $1.1 million, Jason wants the big check presentation, like the
No.
huge
You're misunderstanding me, John. What I want is what the Copa Argentina does. They don't just give one check. Every game that you win, you win money in the tournament. That's the Open Cup, everything's like that. But the part of the post-game celebration in the knockout round is they bring out a big cardboard check, and the team takes a picture with the big cardboard check.
Yeah.
That needs to happen here. Like, make it clear. Like, they're playing for cash.
Yeah. It's like the old $1 million game in XFL.
Yeah.
Do it.
See, what I wanted was at the beginning of this whole thing to have the 2 6'8" dudes in the black suits, the black ties, and the sunglasses come out with the suit with the briefcase and the handcuff attached to the wrist. You open up the suitcase, you see the 1.1, they close it off, and then they walk off.
That's not as much fun, though. And they might get robbed. It's Orlando. Just saying. Don't want that to happen.
These are 2 6'8", 350-pound dudes. You get them from the Performance Center from the WWE. I don't anticipate that folks would rob the two of them.
I don't know. We'll see. No, I think you need to make this. I hope that there's as much money as possible for the winner. I hope it's not one of those where they water it down.
They were a little unclear about that. I mean, they said it was a $1.1 million prize pool.
Right.
Well, I mean, when you talk about 23 players plus per side, and it's going to be a 23-player team sheet. I know you saw that.
Well, now hold on. It's a 23-man match day roster, but your 30-man roster is your 30-man roster.
Right, but you can dress 23 players for a match
but that's two different things. Like, I would assume that if Atlanta wins it, they're going to divide up whatever money they win
by 30.
The roster.
Yeah, I would hope.
Yeah.
I would hope they would do that. So,
come on, Lawrence White. We want you to make as much money as possible.
Yeah.
But, I mean, okay, if you're making a $1.1 million and say the winner's share is $400,000, and I'm just pulling that out as a number. Let's do a little math. $400,000 divided by 30.
75?
About $13,000 per player.
It's a nice month.
That's not bad. That's not bad. That's a nice little,
especially for the guys at the end of the bench. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, you could put a deck on your home for that. So,
if you could, and I'm not doing the math as we go, I'm spitballing this. If you could take $500,000 and put it on the winner, like on that final game. If you go into that final game for $500,000, you know that the winner of that game is walking out with $500,000 and whatever else they've won during the tournament. You don't think ESPN's going to be blowing that up? And you don't think that's going to get a ton of play?
Yeah, no, 100%.
They got 100%. Sponsor opportunities for this thing.
I did think it was interesting, guys, that the final was going to be played on a Tuesday night. That is an interesting development, and I think it's a good development. You're not going to be, heck, by August 9th, which is the preceding Sunday, you could have preseason NFL by then. You could certainly have Major League Baseball by then. You will absolutely have the NBA by then, and probably the NHL. So by doing that on a Tuesday night, I think you're assuring that you're giving a pretty prime weeknight spot to the league as a showcase. Your semifinals the prior Wednesday and Thursday, again, if they're playing at 8 and 10:30. Again, the NBA will be underway, but not yet in its playoff. Really good opportunity for the league to showcase itself. But you're not going to have a whole lot of weekend matches once you get into the last 8. Your quarterfinals, or your round of 16, you could have some weekend matches. You might have a quarterfinal match on Saturday, August 1st. But, they're going to play a lot of these matches on weeknights in prime time. That's where you want to be.
Yep.
That is absolutely where you want to be, especially as the country continues to reopen and people go out and about on weekends and, they go to the beach or a restaurant or something like that. As more people are getting back to work and we're getting back into day-to-day life, you want to be on a weeknight in prime time for maximum TV opportunities. So the league has put itself in that position. That's great. That is really, really great. To have 16 consecutive days of group matches, 3 matches a day spread across your TV partners. Again, just an enormous opportunity for the league to make some new fans. Hopefully the quality of play will be adequate, and I think it will be. You already have a couple teams in full team training. I would anticipate by the end of the week, you're probably going to have most, if not all, the clubs in this league in full team training. So there's going to be plenty of time to get ramped up, and I don't think fitness will be a concern at all for a team like Atlanta United. Yeah. Well, a month on top of what you've already been doing individually. Yeah. Tactical, I think, is where you could see a little bit of rust initially, but to be honest with you,
you're going to have a month. For Atlanta, at least. For Kansas City, for New England, for Miami, he's going to be back this week. You're going to have plenty of time.
Plenty of time.
More than any other league.
And even if you can't do full team until June 24th for the teams that are going to Orlando, you still have 2 weeks to work on the tactics. I think it's going to be great. I think it's going to be really, really great. Again, do I wish that they would be doing everything in home markets like the Bundesliga is doing right now? Absolutely. But this is the way it's going to go. And if this is the way it has to be, this is the best way they can do it.
This creates some unique opportunities, too. That's what I like about it. Go ahead, John.
Yeah, no question. And, Mike, you talk about the opportunity that's presented itself for Major League Soccer with the matches at 9 a.m., 8 and 10:30 p.m.
And by the way, Atlanta United's going to play a 9 a.m. match. I've already gotten that information.
No, there you go.
So
they've got to put some decent ones in that. Otherwise, you're missing the opportunity.
Absolutely.
Right. One point to it is on the weekend. You're not going to put a good game in that 9 o'clock spot on the weekend if you're controlling the schedule.
The Premier League.
Right.
Yeah.
You're going to put your better games on at night. Absolutely. During the week, put them at 9.
Yeah. And don't be shocked if Atlanta United's first team out.
Wouldn't shock me.
I know they're going to draw it, but they aren't drawing into certain fixtures. They're just drawing the matchups. But no, I've been told Atlanta United's almost certainly going to play a 9 a.m. game at some point during this tournament. Don't assume that Atlanta United's going to be in prime time the whole way.
Yeah.
But again, a huge opportunity. Look at how people are watching and reacting to the KBO. So there are people watching sports in the morning. We'll have it on the radio for people who are commuting, but it's different, but let's try it. Let's see how it works. I know typically on the radio side, our most listened to matches are played during the day, not at night. So, perhaps that will translate to TV. Perhaps it won't. The one thing I would not expect is I don't think you're going to have too many East Coast teams drawn into that 10:30 spot. No. I think they're going to try really, really hard to put the West Coast teams in there. There might be, there might be a little bit of wiggle room on that, but
I think you'll basically have Eastern teams in the 9 o'clocks. You'll have Western teams in the 10:30s, and you'll have both in the 8s.
Yeah. Now, one thing I'm not clear on is if you're going to have simultaneous matches.
No.
No.
You are not. So
You're
it's
not.
going to be one match at a time.
One match at a time.
Well, there you go. Well, it's good news for the TV partners. It's certainly great news for ESPN Plus.
We're going to move our time slot.
Yeah.
There's going to be a game on. So we'll be probably doing post-game SDH after whatever the 9 o'clock games are. Except when it's an Atlanta game, because then we'll have even more post-game coverage on 92.9 The Game.
Yeah, no doubt. But again, I mean, this is why I'm glad they finally made this announcement. I think they were in position to make it a few days ago, and they wanted to wait for obvious reasons. But this gives us some exciting, tangible things to talk about. And I can hear the excitement in your voices. I've certainly seen the excitement on social media today. I mean, it's a big win for the league. It's a big win for Atlanta United. Just think, I mean, Atlanta United was the last North American pro sports team playing before everything came to a halt. Okay, 1 a.m. in Mexico City, Eastern time. Atlanta United was the last team kicking a ball or bouncing a ball or shooting a puck. And now, depending on how this all breaks out on July the 8th, Atlanta United could be potentially the first North Americans, U.S. or Canada, the first American professional sports team back.
Men's.
It's incredible.
Men's. NWSL. We got to give our respect.
But what I'm saying is the NWSL never got started. So,
True. Right. First back.
As far as teams stopping and then coming back, could be Atlanta United, potentially. Atlanta United certainly going to have the shortest time where they did not play of any North American professional sports team. I think we know that for sure. So did anyone play before us that night?
No.
Marshall,
they did. They did. What was it?
Was it New York City?
I want to say they were the day before.
Yeah.
I think there was a game in CONCACAF before us that night, but I can't remember if it was an MLS team. It might have been Montreal.
Yeah. Montreal and Saprissa?
No, Olympia.
No.
Olympia.
Hold on.
It might have been Montreal Olympia.
Okay.
Hold the phone, folks.
While you are efforting,
now.
Mike,
yes.
We've got a couple Twitch comments. Tesco is voting for the prizes to be given in a treasure chest from Pirates, which would make sense.
By the way, it was New York City, by the way, against Tigres.
Cool.
Good call.
At Red Bull Arena.
That's right. Okay, Turner Kirby has a good idea for who can do that draw tomorrow. This is a good bit of trivia for you. So, celebrating a birthday this week, it was actually yesterday, 84 years old Donald Duck.
Oh, wow.
Oh.
Yeah. So, Donald Duck can come out and do the draw.
Okay.
In reality, I love Turner's idea. In reality, it will probably be a very bare bones effort that will be done on Zoom because you have to respect social distancing. I don't.
Donald Duck can Zoom.
Well, sure, but I don't anticipate a 1993 Las Vegas style World Cup draw like we had. I think
want Donald to have the ping pong balls. I want Donald to have the trawler thing is that they're spinning them around in, and then Donald can pull the ball out and show it to us, and then wherever the talking heads are assembled, they can talk about it. I'm good with that.
There you go. Yeah, I'm good with that too. What I hope is we don't get into some of the production elements we've seen in prior expansion drafts where, the first half hour of the program is explaining, here's what a soccer ball is, and here's where our cities are, and let's look at the map. And you might notice that the city of Miami is located here. And let's go down to Miami now and look at a palm tree. I would like to see them maybe cut to the chase a little bit more.
Give me the draw.
Just give me the draw. The NWSL, when they did their draw, if I could critique just a little, they did a lot of the same things. Here's our commissioner, and we have a commissioner. in this league, and her name is this.
They hadn't had one for a minute, so that was at least a valid point for them.
I guess. I would just like to see them cut to the chase. If they would fax out, if fax machines still work, if they would fax out a draw sheet at 3:30 in the afternoon and let us just tear it apart, I would much rather have that than some, okay, now we're going to do a featurette on how the wide world of sports held the 1998 Combine. Just give us the draw, and then we can have the featurettes later. That would be my request.
Here's the number that we have to consider. How many people will be part of this presentation tomorrow? How many different individuals will be part of it? Whoever gets the number closest out of the three of us, the other people have to buy them a beverage of their choice.
All right,
are
we talking about the production or just involved in the actual draw?
Let's say how many different people will make a televised appearance during the draw show?
Oh, Lord. Okay. All right, well, let me count. Susanna Collins, Jillian Sakovitz, Charlie Davies, Weeby, I'm sure will be in there, Matt Doyle, Mark Abbott, I bet will be in there. I don't know. They'll probably Zoom with someone. I'm going to say 8. 8 people.
Okay, John, what's your number?
Okay, so I have 8 in the on-air talent category before we even get into Don Garber. I'm going to go... Wow, I could go so high with this number because you could get the reaction of every team. I'm going to go, let's see, 8, top 16 is 14, so I'll go 20.
Wow.
Because I think it's going to be a rapid-fire Zoom thing where you sit there and you talk to the top seeds, and you've got everybody in studio. You've got Don Garber. You've got Goofy or Mickey or Donald presenting an envelope, like they did the NFL draft top picks with the hats going from side to side. It could be an extravaganza.
Yeah, it could be.
I'm going 32.
Yeah.
I think it's going to be ridiculous.
Every team, Don Garber, you're going to have characters,
the TV analysts, the play-by-play folks for TV for all the different partners.
I was afraid to go that high, knowing it could be, but yeah, I think you're right.
I'm going 32. I think it's going to be absolute chaos.
Mm-hmm.
Hopefully in a fun way, at least.
Hopefully in a fun and informative way. And, again, it's weird being an Atlanta United supporter because sometimes I feel like as a feature club, we could benefit from the frozen envelope. It's a very different experience covering Atlanta United as opposed to the Atlanta Hawks. So, maybe frozen envelopes would be a good thing, and they're going to try to put Atlanta United in a beneficial group for them. But honestly, here's the thing, guys. We haven't had a match in more than 3 months. It'll be 4 months of a layoff in league play. So, when we get the draw tomorrow, I mean, heck, it could be Atlanta, New England, Nashville, and Montreal. And we can look at that and say, hey, that might be a pretty easy group. And in reality, it might be a very tough group because we just don't know. There's been so much time off. And I'm going to have to go back and count. I'm going to guess that March 12th to July 8th is going to be a longer layoff than October 29th, 2017 to March 3rd, 2018. Or very, very close. I mean, you're talking about the length of a full off season. Yeah. So, we'll want to have fun breaking down the draw, and I think we'll get a pretty good sense of how easy or difficult each group will be, but you never really fully know. And I think this is something that we're going to see when the NBA and the NHL start back up. So much time has passed that teams that were red hot and had a lot of momentum going into the start of the pandemic, you don't necessarily carry that momentum and that feel into the restart of play. So I think it's going to be a wild tournament, and I think the draw is going to be fascinating because there are so many unknowns, and that's going to just add to the drama. I think it's going to be great.
You touched on it, and Bart's already here in the black helicopters. He says, how random will this draw be?
Mm-hmm.
I hope it's random.
Yeah.
I hope it's completely random.
Yeah, I hope so too. And I think the way you assure that it is a random draw is it's not like the World Cup where you're being drawn into specific dates and times where, okay, let's say you do get a group of death of Atlanta, New York City, Philly, and Red Bulls, which is possible. You do get that group of death. Okay, well, then the league will deal with it by putting those fixtures in prime time with your national TV partners. So, I think that's going to give you a level of protection and assurance that this is going to be look, it's going to be a truly random draw anyway. We're completely joking about this, right? But
Right.
I think that's going to increase the odds that this is truly a blind random draw, because you can work things around with your TV partners and your TV schedule to assure that, yeah, if you do get an imbalanced group, at least that group's going to be featured on national TV.
Yeah, you'll get big games. Go ahead, John.
I have a separate question for Mike before he goes, but
Okay.
Nathan Pugh wants to know if we can have an Orlando Conti karaoke segment on the 7 a.m. shows that Nathan's already programming.
We'll see. Get a couple mimosas in me, and you never know.
Yeah, it's
Oh.
going to be breakfast with Atlanta United at least at some point.
Breakfast with Five Stripes.
I mean, we've had 5 stripes after dark. We might as well have 5 stripes before dawn, right?
We have not had that yet. That's a
The
new
Dawn
one.
Patrol.
Oh, man. That game's going to be ridiculous. Something really weird will happen.
I'll tell you, if I had a choice, if they're going to make Atlanta United play a 9 a.m. game, my preference would be for that to happen first. Not at the end of the group stage, at the beginning of the group stage, because in terms of rest and recovery, it would be a big advantage if you played 9 a.m. in your first match and you played 8 p.m. in your second.
Mm-hmm.
I don't want to have a situation where you're playing 8 p.m. and then your next match is at 9 a.m. because it basically eliminates a day of regen.
Yep.
So if it's going to happen, I'd like to see it happen first.
I'm with that.
No doubt. Yep.
Go ahead, John.
Nick was just saying Nick is predicting 12 individuals. Ricky Ricardo is predicting 15 to be involved in this presentation.
I got 32.
It's going to be.
Absolutely.
They're going to blow it up.
All the
think you're right.
dwarves.
And they should. I mean, if they can put it together quickly, make it as big as you possibly can. Are there any Coppa Italia or German Cup games tomorrow at 3:30?
Tomorrow there
I don't think
is not.
Okay, so I mean,
There's
go
La
for it.
Liga, but I think it's at 4:30.
Okay, so do it in an hour. Be off before you're done with La Liga, or
Yeah, and that's a
before La
BN,
Liga
so you don't even have
starts.
to worry about it.
Yeah.
Yeah, blow it out. You're going to have a huge captive soccer audience, so make it as big as you can.
4
safely,
o'clock
obviously.
for BN for La Liga, Sevilla and Betis.
Okay. Well, hey, look, give us the draw in a half hour then and do all the fanfare later, please. There's your reason.
Yep, that works. I'm down with
Yep.
this.
Yeah. Chris Hutchison wants to know why there's such a big gap between the morning and evening matches.
Heat.
Heat, humidity, and rain.
Yeah.
You're almost guaranteed to get a 5 p.m. thunderstorm in Orlando. So Jason and I can both attest to it. I mean, we've sat through. How many times have we been in that tiny booth at Exploria Stadium, seeing lightning in the distance as we're hooking up our equipment at 5 p.m. So this minimizes the chances that you're going to have any kind of weather delay, because what you don't want is like what you had at the All-Star match, where you have a lightning delay. Now you're starting at 9, and your West Coast fixture isn't starting until midnight. You don't want that. This is going to reduce the possibility of that happening. And I think it's something the players pushed for, too, quite frankly. The players did not want to be playing at 3:30 in the afternoon in Orlando, and I certainly can't blame them.
Good point that Tannenwald makes at Philadelphia Inquirer. That 9 o'clock game, that's going to be huge for European and Asian
Absolutely.
broadcasters
Yeah.
as well. It's a huge
Absolutely.
opportunity for the league.
Yeah, no, 100%. Now, I don't know I don't know what your international broadcast partners are really doing right now. Like, you're going to have a lot of midweek fixtures in Spain and in Italy, and I think even in England, correct? Like, isn't England going to go on a run of a game a day for a while?
But not at 9 o'clock. They're going to do their games in the evening slot.
Their prime time? Well, there you go.
Yeah.
No, that's a great point.
So the British afternoon,
opportunity.
British afternoons would be the morning matches here in Orlando.
Guys, it's going to be like a World Cup.
Yeah,
it's going to be like
exactly
a World Cup.
Yeah.
And I mean, just literally the same time of year. I mean, how much do we enjoy in those World Cup years in late June, early July, the opportunity to watch meaningful soccer, going into lunchtime?
These knockout games, I'm telling you, the last games of the group stage where teams are playing to get in and the knockout games, if there's been any questions about teams ramping back up the intensity, well, there you go. And especially you put a good cash prize on it.
Well, and here's the other thing. You're putting a good cash prize on it. The group stage is over, July 26th? Yes. So if you're out, if you're one of the 8 teams knocked out, you're not playing again for a month. Mm-hmm. Think about that.
Oh, yeah, you're hauling ass.
You don't want that. Yeah, I mean, you don't want to have another month off for a number of reasons. So, yeah, it's not quite to the same degree as a relegation playoff, obviously, but there's going to be a lot of heat in those matches. And the other thing, too, like if you take that Eastern Conference group of 6, goal difference is going to become really, really critical if you're in that group.
Mm-hmm.
So you're going to have matches where teams are going to have their pedal to the metal for 90 minutes. And I think you're going to have the potential of some 5, 6, 7 goal goleadas early in this tournament because goal difference is going to be vital.
And you get
very,
5 subs.
very critical. Yes. Yeah. So, it's going to be fun. It's going to be wild, but it's going to be a lot of fun.
This is going to be nuts. All right, so broadcasting stuff for us right now. We've got stoppage time at 2 o'clock this afternoon, facebook.com/929 The Game. I assume we'll do a breakdown of the draw tomorrow? Sound like
I think so. I'll talk to you. We'll set a time. I would say maybe... Oh, boy. Maybe late afternoon or early evening. I don't think we'll do it as the draw is going on.
No, we can do it after.
So we'll figure out a time. We'll tweet it out. But, yeah, we'll do an emergency stoppage time tomorrow to break down the draw. And as I tweeted, all the Orlando matches are going to be on the radio, so you're going to get Jason and I for all that. And I think we're going to really be doing some very cool pre- and post-match stuff in conjunction with the team and also in conjunction with some of our personalities at the radio station. You can imagine if there's a 9 a.m. game.
Breakfast with Bell.
No, let's not go crazy now. But, Andy Bunker's a big soccer fan. Hugh is a big soccer fan. Randy is. So we're going to have a lot of fun with our personalities at the radio station. It's going to be a really, really cool thing, and I'm looking forward to it. And here's the best news of all. We're less than a month away.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Orlando.
You never outgrow it.
No, we might have to work that into the broadcast. We're gonna have to think about our post game music after wins and all this kind of stuff. So rest up. We got a lot to talk about later this afternoon.
Talk to you too. See you guys.
Thanks, Mike. All right, we got a lot of other things as well. You guys have questions, throw them our way on Twitter at Soccer Down Here. Throw them in the comments on Twitch. We've got a ton of things to get to. I want to run through some news of stuff real quick, too, so we don't miss it.
Right.
USL, Louisville released plans for their practice facility. They're building a facility that's going to include training for Louisville City, for the new NWSL team that launches next year, their youth academy. It looks beautiful. It's a very cool plan to see, and it's a big deal for Louisville, for USL, for NWSL, and for their academy. It's a big, big, big deal. Alex Vejar of the Salt Lake City newspaper is reporting that Kristen Press will not participate in the NWSL Challenge Cup. So that would be added to Megan Rapinoe, not expected to participate in that event. She has not made an announcement. Press has not made an announcement. Rapinoe's manager has said she is not playing, and Vihar of Salt Lake City newspaper reporting is saying that Press will not be participating. We'll see if there's any more in that NWSL Challenge Cup. We haven't heard anybody in MLS yet that has said they are not participating. Carlos Vela was maybe the biggest question mark because his wife is expecting a child here very soon. Chicharito was rumored to be in the situation, but he came out last week and said he's playing. So Carlos Vela would be the one that we're kind of waiting to see what's going on. UEFA Champions League looks like it's going to be in Lisbon. There had been some late pushes for it to go to Madrid, but you don't have Real Madrid's venue right now. It's being renovated. Real Madrid's going to play their games in La Liga at their secondary stadium where their reserve team plays. So that kind of limited the opportunities for Madrid because Lisbon's got two stadiums that are basically right next to one another. The idea, and this has to be ratified next Wednesday at UEFA's Executive Committee meeting, August 8th would be when the Champions League comes back. That would include the pending matches of the knockout stage. Manchester City, Real Madrid is one of them. Barcelona, Napoli is another one. Atletico has already eliminated Liverpool, so they've moved on. The final is set for August 23rd, according to the plan, at Da Luz Stadium in Lisbon. The idea here is you got those two stadiums that are separated by 2 kilometers. There's no Portuguese teams left in the tournament, so Lisbon would make a lot of sense for this. The draft is, let's see, the 4 matches remaining to be played in the round of 16, weekend of August 8th. 2 on Saturday, 2 on Sunday, back-to-back. After 48 hours, the 8 teams qualified for the quarterfinals must arrive in Lisbon to start the knockout series August 12th. So knockouts start with the quarterfinals in Lisbon, 1 game, not 2 games, and that's the plan for the Champions League. It has to be ratified, but everybody in Lisbon August 12th, and 7 all-or-nothing matches is the way they're describing it. No fans in the stands. They're not thinking about that. Europa League, they don't know what they're going to do exactly yet, but they're working on something similar, and they could have it in Germany instead of in Poland. UEFA would compensate Istanbul, who is supposed to have the Champions League final, Gdansk, who is supposed to have the Europa League final. They'd get some money out of this. Everything else would move. Germany yesterday, Leverkusen moved on to the to the final. They beat Saarbrücken, the 4th division team, 3-0. Scored pretty early. It was a pretty dominant performance, as you would expect. Second semifinal today, 2:30 ESPN, Bayern Munich, Eintracht Frankfurt. And if you haven't seen, Eintracht Frankfurt is going to wear a special kit for today with hashtag Black Lives Matter in place of the sponsor on the front. That's going to get a lot of attention. Germany's been very involved in these protests that are going on right now. Italy, Mario Balotelli showed up for training yesterday. Club said, don't bother. This is getting a little complicated. Reportedly, just to fill you in on all of it, he said he was sick. He said he had stomach problems. The Italian newspaper Gazzetta dello Sport reported that Balotelli sent a doctor's note on Monday to say he had recovered, that he could come to training on Tuesday. It didn't arrive in time, and reportedly the club turned him away because he would not have been insured to participate. So if he had injured himself, he wouldn't be covered by insurance. Is that what it is? Is there more to it? Who knows? This is a mess. This is not good all the way around. Brescia doesn't want him back. He's got a contract. I don't think there should be a line of people expecting him to come to MLS. I think this idea that, just bring him to MLS, it's great. Would you say that if you were a fan of Manchester United or a club in the Premier League or your favorite team in La Liga or in Germany? Yeah, bring him in. So then why is it okay for him to come to MLS? I don't want the circus attitude here with that. If he's going to play, if he's healthy, great. He can be a good player. He hasn't been a great player for Brescia this year. And now you have this on top of it. Do you want a bunch of madness in a season that's already going to be madness? No. And why is it okay for MLS to have that when you're not advocating for him to go to another club? I got questions about that. He'd have to prove himself to me to want to see him in MLS. If he's healthy and fit and motivated, all in. I don't know if that's the case. And that has to be part of this conversation. Atletico Madrid, they are not looking at fans in the stands right now, although Spain is talking about it potentially here in a few weeks. Their president, Enrique Cerezo, says basically we don't know. We're waiting for the health authorities to tell us. There's 11 games left for Atletico Madrid, plus the rest of the Champions League, which could be up to 4 games. Bunch of games for them. Could they have fans in? They're not ruling it out, but they don't know what that timeline looks like. So they're not getting ahead of themselves. They're trying very carefully not to do that. But they understand the challenges without having fans in the stands because they talk about it. They say that the non-attendance would create a blow for clubs of almost 30%. That's the match day revenue they could potentially lose. They talk about the sponsors and things you'd have to give back in those situations. They say for some clubs that are not, limited companies or owned by an individual, you've got different challenges, like we've talked about with Barcelona, Athletic Bilbao, Osasuna, Real Madrid, who's been run a little bit differently than Barca, but they're in that situation too. They're membership clubs. So they're going to have more challenges than others. Come back to England because there's a whole bunch of stuff there. Scotland is looking at having the cardboard fans in the stands. There's a company, Fans at the Game. It's an app based in Glasgow that has been created. Dundee United is going to do it. Others could. Colchester United in League Two is looking at doing it for their playoff stuff. So we'll see. We'll see what that looks like. We talked about it yesterday in France. You could potentially avoid relegation for Toulouse and Amiens, who were supposed to be relegated. Their argument was heard by the French court system that there's not a mandate to only have 20 teams in Liga next year. That mandate expires June 30th. So for next year, it's on the table. They could go to 22 teams if they want to. So now the courts didn't say you can't relegate. The court said you have to re-examine it because your justification is not accurate. So you have to re-examine this. Will it change? Who knows? One thing we hadn't talked about in France, one of the reasons why Amiens and Toulouse are fighting so hard to stay up, other than just they don't want to get relegated, there is a new TV contract that kicks in next year with MediaPro. Record payments, total of $1.3 billion from all the broadcasters. Whole lot more TV money next year than there was this year. They don't want to miss out on that, and they're trying to fight their way into staying. The Eredivisie in the Netherlands issued a statement that's really important. They are the first league in Europe to redistribute a share of club revenue from UEFA club competitions to non-participating clubs. Think about how the bowl money gets shared to a conference in college football. Same idea. So some of the money, 5% of the revenues, is going to go into a pot that gets shared across the board. They also announced some other things, mandating that Eredivisie clubs have a youth development academy or at least a regional youth training situation in association with amateur clubs. They expanded the solidarity pot, essentially, to include second division teams. 15% of the money will go to the second division teams. Those second division teams have to have a youth training program to qualify. So they're trying to push the development of young players and what that looks like. They've even changed some things about how training compensation looks like in the Netherlands, going all the way down to 11 years old and making agreements to not poach players at a young age. And if they go, it's 35,000 euros per training year per player. And then there would be another payment when the player plays 10 games at the first team level for the club they go to. They're trying to really incentivize youth development and player development in the Netherlands. It's an important thing because it's what they've really been known for and maybe slipped away from that a little bit in recent years. So they're trying to fix that. Argentina, couple things. One is an important one to keep in the back of your mind. The Argentine FA is not going to lift the training moratorium individually, club by club, province by province. Everybody has to be able to train until the AFA will allow everybody to train. I think one of the provinces right now is about to lift any kind of moratorium on sports activity, and Godoy Cruz could start training. The AFA is not going to allow them to get a head start. That's a little different than what we've seen here in the U.S., for example. River Plate made an announcement today that is an important one, and when you're looking at MLS teams that might need a striker, and yes, there is one here in Atlanta that could be in this conversation, Ignacio Scocco will not be renewing his contract. They're out of season in Argentina now. They declared an end to the Copa de la Superliga. The new season will start. He is out of contract. Played 19 games in the league, scored 6 goals. He is 35 years old, but he is on a free now. He's a player who played with Pity Martinez, obviously, during his time at River. He's a player who overlapped a little bit with Franco Escobar at Newell's Old Boys. He was a favorite of Tata Martino during his time at Newell's when he won the league title back in 2013. So Ignacio Scocco is going to be available on a free. Veteran striker, not the same kind of player as Joseph Martinez at all. Very different kind of player, but an experienced guy. He's got time in Europe as well. Wouldn't surprise me if he ends up somewhere in MLS. Would not surprise me at all. And Atlanta, hey, Atlanta's a team that might be considering it. We don't know what the transfer windows and stuff are going to look like, because right now the window's not open. The window was set to be open in July. Does that move? Do they push the window that expired back because you didn't get the full usage of it because of the COVID-19 outbreak? That's another question that I want to see how MLS solves. Scocco is a name you might want to keep in mind for a number of MLS teams, and Atlanta would be included in that. Australia is still a mess. They don't have anything. They're still trying to get transparency. The FFA, the Football Federation in Australia, is like, within days, we'll have a date for resumption. Within days. It's been a lot of days. We still don't know. The players are not happy about having to accept the salary reductions and the conditions that were presented to them and not getting full transparency in the decision-making process, and where everything just keeps getting pushed back and pushed back and pushed back. So nothing to update there. England, number of things. Let's hit the headlines quickly. Chelsea's going to donate their prize money for winning the Women's Super League, £100,000, to a charity which supports women and children experiencing domestic abuse. Emma Hayes said it's a charity that's close to the hearts and minds of the women's team. They've supported them publicly with a call to action. They're donating all of their prize money to this organization. Very, very cool from Chelsea ladies to do this. At the top level in England, Manchester United was supposed to have a friendly yesterday with Stoke City. Canceled at the last minute because Michael O'Neill, the manager of Stoke City, tested positive for coronavirus. No symptoms. Got the news of the positive test. I think he had already arrived. Everybody said that there was no interaction with him and any Manchester United personnel. He had tested negative in their first 5 tests and tested positive in test number 6. And he was on site. So they canceled it at the very last minute. That's a little scary. That's why maybe other leagues are not doing these friendlies behind closed doors in the ramp-up to returning to play. England is. This is what can happen. The Merseyside derby will be held at Everton. The Liverpool City Council has recommended that Everton and Liverpool can play at home safely and securely. The deputy mayor was involved. Police, fire, both clubs' fan groups were involved. The mayor of Liverpool, Joe Anderson, was the one who initially was opposed to it. That's all changed. So we will see that at Goodison Park, it sounds like. And other Everton news, first team squad taking wage deferrals of up to 50% for the next 3 months to offset the financial losses due to coronavirus. Carlo Ancelotti, his staff, directors, senior execs have taken reductions and deferrals of up to 30% since the start of this. So Everton voluntarily taking wage deferrals, first team squad, up to 50%. The rest of it, look, League One and League Two, people are angry, people are happy, people are saying this is a travesty, people are saying, yeah, we're good with this. This is what they had to do. You can guess who is saying what based off where they fall in the table. There is nothing new to it. Peterborough, angry. Biggest disappointment I've ever had, Director of Football Barry Fry says, because they got bumped out of a spot due to points per game for a playoff. Wickham, they got moved into a spot. They feel like it was the right decision.
Mm-hmm.
Shocking.
Yeah, no.
I would have never guessed that, right?
Yep.
Tranmere, disappointed.
Yep.
Well, they're getting relegated. I mean, there you go.
Yes.
There's no surprises here. The news out of this article, and this was from the BBC, is that 18 of the third-tier clubs voted to curtail the season immediately. And it was estimated that it would have cost each team. We talked about the cost of just the testing. The cost to finish the season, £500,000. There's third division teams in England who can't afford that. That's why they're not doing it. 18 teams voted not to do it. So this is where you're at. Good news on this front. AFC Wimbledon, Leyton Orient, are having, and John's very happy about his AFC Wimbledon shirt, they are hoping to save a combined total of nearly £750,000 through fans not asking for refunds on season tickets following this curtailment. Rick Perry, the EFL chairman, said it's a major problem still facing sides. Leyton Orient already over 75% of season ticket holders waive their right to a refund in just 12 hours. They hope that that's going to increase. They hope to save £250,000. They said, Danny Macklin, their CEO, we will never take the loyalty of our fans for granted. We will never, ever do that. AFC Wimbledon have received a big boost because less than 5% of season ticket holders have asked for a refund. That's saving almost £500,000. That's impressive. That's what happens at lower division sides, I think, because they understand the financial realities here. So the majority in both cases, for Wimbledon, it's, 95% of the people are not asking for a refund. For Leyton Orient, over 75% not asking for the refund. That's going to help those clubs in a big way because those clubs probably would not be able to easily afford paying that £250,000 or that £500,000.
You're looking at AFC Wimbledon, Don's Trust member, full disclosure, in the process of building a new stadium so they can return to Plough Lane so they don't have to play at Cherry Red anymore, considering that land was sold to Chelsea. And 10% of the ownership of the club was transferred to the gentleman who put forth, I think it was over £10 million to make sure that the stadium could be completed. So it's good stuff out of AFC Wimbledon. For the longest time, Don's fans and the Don's Trust have understood that to keep the team where it is, considering that was basically had to be rebuilt from scratch once the old Wimbledon club went and became the team that I'm not going to mention by name. They just understand that this is all a part of the growth, and good on them for doing it. Fantastic stuff.
Yeah, I mean, it's vital for a club of that size. It's really just down to being critical for this to happen. Mexico, we have updates from Tom Marshall out of ESPN that it looks like they are looking at a return in July. They will be able to get back on the board then, and this would be the next season, which the timeline all works out for that to be the case. Tom Marshall's article over at ESPN, the Mexican government's giving the green light to return behind closed doors. Let me see if there's any more details. Yeah, July, which is what would have been the case anyway. But now they're getting the green light to go ahead. But it's going to be behind closed doors. You'll have TV. Coronavirus expert in Mexico, Hugo Lopez Gatell, said we'd be talking about an activity that in sanitary terms would be of high risk of contagion if there were spectators. However, behind closed doors without public, the activity can be carried out, and it's considered that it would be useful from an economic perspective. That's the first time I've heard the viral expert talk about the economics of it, which, I mean, is, as we've said, you can't take it away from the conversation. It is part of it. These teams are coming back because of the economic concerns. but they're making it safe to do so. You can do both. It can happen. Kefsy's worried about Charlotte not existing because of their website being offline. I didn't know how long it was offline. They are still planning to exist. I don't know why that would be even a thought, because they've hired a bunch of people. They've hired a bunch of academy. They've hired a bunch of people. They hired Bobby Belair, who had been here in Atlanta with Atlanta United. They are putting forth a pretty strong front office straight out of the gates. So don't worry about Charlotte. They're not going anywhere. Kefsy says the joining of Austin next year is why Nashville's moving east, right, trying to catch up on midseason change. No, it's the moving east right now because of travel, because of compressed schedule, because there's probably not going to be any inter-conference play. It's all going to be intra-conference play, and they want to keep it reasonable. Nashville basically said as much. Like, now their longest trip would be Montreal as opposed to going to the West Coast. Austin next year was already on the boards. Charlotte next year was already on the boards when everything was decided on the format. That's an East and a West for next year. So you're still in the same situation for next year. If you want balanced conferences, somebody's got to go to the West temporarily. That's fixed in 22 when St. Louis and Sacramento, who have already been approved, come in, because then it's 2 out west. Then somebody comes back to the east. So the decision for next year is going to be, do you go with an uneven number in the 2 conferences for travel reasons, and then how do you make the schedule work to deal with that, because it's not easy? Or do you have Nashville go back to the West for the 21 season and then come to the East permanently going forward? Or once you get to that point, are you doing it differently anyway? Are you doing 3 groups of 10? Are you going divisions within conferences? Then it's a whole different conversation. But then it's more permanent once you get to 22.
Couple of things left on the Twitters. Tafka has a tactical question.
Okay.
Off of the news yesterday where Georgia Tech is installing a new artificial surface and not having football permanently stitched. Tafka's question, with the news of Tech doing what they're doing, was the added field size at Mercedes-Benz more crucial to Tata's more high-flying verticalidad than it is to Frank DeBoer's more measured possessional attack?
No, I think it was better for Frank's system than Tata's. I think it helped Tata Martino's system, and I think if you go back and look at it, Tata Martino's pressing style decreased once you were at Mercedes-Benz. And there's other reasons, too. I don't think it's a straight-up correlation here. But, you know, it's a wider field. It's harder to press. More narrow field, it's easier to press. There's less space. Pressing is trying to condense space anyway. In a possession system, you want to open up the space. So you want as wide of a field, as big of a field as you possibly can. So that's why I think Tata's teams moved from day 1 2017 to final day 2018 to be more possession-based, less reliant on a press, and the wider field just helps Frank's system from the jump because it's more about possession from day 1.
Cuppers with a question that I will put out there, and if you wish to defer until tomorrow to answer because of its length, I will understand.
Okay.
He says, let's get back into what we think a healthy Atlanta United is going to look like, and he mentions Bello, Castillo, Castro, Bisetu, John, JJ, or a false 9, and a 6 and an 8. As questions that he has.
That's a lot of questions.
That's why I figured I would put it out there.
It's a lot of questions that aren't necessarily answerable. I think the way this team played to start the season would be where we'd be starting the conversation. So 3-4-3, 3 center backs, wing backs, 2 central midfielders. How does the 3 look? Is it going to be a true number 9, as we saw with Joseph Martinez, as we saw with Adam John? Or is it going to be, a true number 9 and then wide players? Is it going to be more of what we saw with 2 number 10s below a number 9, like Joseph Martinez and Pitti and Barco slotting in underneath that? Or is it going to be a false 9, as we saw at the Estadio Azteca to start, with Pitti and Barco? And I don't remember that lineup off the top of my head. Don't go look for it. We'll talk about it more in detail tomorrow.
Yep.
is it going to be more like that? You've got all the different options now. I think you can reimagine it if you want. And now that you have Josetu fully integrated, now that you have Castro, who's more of a wide right-sided player that you didn't really have after Villalba was moved on, you could look at this differently. But I think the 3-4-3 is probably where the conversation starts because it worked. And I think it can work with all of the different personnel. But now that you have everybody, you might do it differently. I think Josetu being in the mix can make the false nine work even better with Pity Martinez. And we did see the willingness to go to that look at the Azteca, which surprised me. The lineup surprised me that it was that bold in a game on the road. And look, it didn't work. And you can criticize that if you want. But I think that gives you a glimpse of what you could see with Josetu fully healthy, fully fit to start this Orlando tournament. Could you see a front three of Pity, Josetu, Barco with basically alternating who runs up top, who drops in, how fluid it is? That could be fascinating to see if it comes off because I think all those players, the skill sets work for it. We'll get deeper into that as we go. I think we'll get glimpses once we start to hear from Frank, once we start to hear from players, what they could be looking at. But, yeah, we could be in for the 3-4-3 and start from there. We could be in for surprises because they got a month. They got a month to prepare for this thing. That's a lot of time to go into the lab and work through it and find different combinations. And you have to kind of look at it fresh because of the loss of Joseph. So now, look, it's a blank slate. You could go 3-4-3, but you're not mandated to. You're not guaranteed to. I think you've got the players to fit that. But your decision is going to be, are we better off with that or with a more traditional system with a number 9, and our number 9 options and a true number 9 right now are Adam John and J.J. Williams, who are both different. They give you different things. Or do you look at a pairing? Do you look at 2 up top? Does that mean 3-5-2? Does that mean 4-4-2? Lots of different possibilities. But you're going to have time to work on it. That's the important thing. And I haven't heard anything about games or any kind of preseason stuff or anything like that. So it's going to be tough for a team who's drawn with Atlanta to predict what it looks like day one in Orlando. That's going to help Atlanta. That's going to help Frank. He's going to have a lot of opportunities to catch people by surprise.
Ricky Ricardo says, so the winner of the tourney gets a 2021 CCL spot. Are we kicking 2020 CCL to the curb?
Nope, nobody said that. You're looking for something in the announcement that's not there. We don't know what's going to happen with 2020. International travel is a huge question. You know, is it going to be possible? Mexico is not going to be back playing until July. Same with MLS. Don't know about Honduras yet, but I would assume that you could be looking at the same timeline. That's the 3 countries that have teams left. Do you finish the quarterfinals where they are and then go to a single game semifinal and final in a location? It's probably the more reasonable way. Are you going to be prevented from doing that because of economics? Because you need to get this tournament finished for the economics of it. You don't want to have to give money back to Scotiabank, for example, or TV partners because CONCACAF needs that money desperately to spread around the federation. Bermuda, Caribbean islands, Nicaragua, all the smaller federations need their percentage of that money. So you need to get it finished. Is it going to be possible? It's too early to tell. Right now, FIFA has not gotten rid of the 2020 Club World Cup. And that's another element into it. That's scheduled for December. So right now, you need to have a representative for that. So that means you need to finish the competition. But as we saw with the Copa Libertadores, with the madness with Boca and River, they finished that, and River went directly from Spain to the Club World Cup. So, I mean, if it gets finished in December, it gets finished in early December, and then you go to the Club World Cup. It's too early to tell. But no, there's no indication and no announcement has been made about getting rid of the 2020 CONCACAF Champions League just yet.
Tafka with an MLS is back hashtag question with the TV elements. He says, are they not more likely to keep marquee clubs in the primetime slots? No club can effectively, in quotation marks, draw at 9 a.m. as most everyone is back at work now. I think you squander more than you salvage.
You got to think internationally, because this is going to be an opportunity for MLS to get in front of international eyeballs. The international TV business has been booming for Major League Soccer, and this is a huge introduction to that. So that's part of it. People who are at work, I don't think everybody's back at work, first off. I think there's a lot of people still working from home, and we know how that goes. There's people who are, air quotes, working from home who might be watching a game that's on. It's very possible. So, I don't think you're squandering anything by it. I think it creates an opportunity you've never had. So I think you're going to try to capitalize on it. The other element of it that you're doing is you got a TV deal that you're going to be negotiating to start in 2023 for new partnerships or new partnerships with existing partners. You got a big one in ESPN who's producing this thing for you, and they got a lot of time to fill. What's going to be more compelling for the ESPN folks to talk about, KBO or MLS? MLS, and they don't talk about MLS in that way. Again, if you're able to schedule a 9 o'clock game and then have First Take come on at 11 and actually talk about it and have a coach or a player on the show, or have Taylor Twellman or Alejandro Moreno come on the show and go back and forth with Stephen A. and Max, that's a spotlight that you've never had, and that might be worth the trade-off on a little bit of a ratings hit. But the way ratings are now, I mean, you're going to be in a different place. This is going to be completely different because you're going to be streaming it. If people are at work, they're going to be pulling it up on a stream. I think there's more to benefit than to lose by doing it. I don't think you throw every Atlanta United game in that slot, but
that first morning slot, you're going to get.
We'll see. We'll talk more about it as the day goes on. At 2 o'clock on tomorrow. Once we get afternoon, we'll have stuff to go around it too. We just don't have today. SDH, we're back tomorrow at 9, and then we'll all be back at some point later in the day as well. So, with that, all week. Mucha plata, y'all.